We're always looking for someone to blame because that's what was done in our families. Someone has to be at fault. And in many dysfunctional families, there's one person who is the identified patient or scapegoat, and the family heaps all that blame onto that one person. This is all very much tied to victim mentality. We act like we don't have a part in the way things are, which means we believe we can't have a part in the solution of whatever the problem is. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I'm a boundaries coach who specializes in helping women who are focused on what others are thinking and doing and neglect themselves in the process. And I have coached hundreds of people on how to build healthy boundaries using my exclusive Build framework. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. I'm an avid beachcomber who collects sea glass, shells, wood, and stones. I am a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially the Christmas movies. Hello, Christmas in July. I wear fingerless gloves from September to June because my hands are always cold, so I have about 15 pairs. And I get a huge kick out of counting how many days, weeks, and months there are until my birthday or Christmas at completely random times of the year. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. If you like what you've heard on this episode, please screenshot it and share it on your social media and tag me at Higher Power Coaching. This is episode 279, The Blame Game, Recognizing and Releasing the Need to Blame. So there is a trigger warning for this episode. I mentioned something that could be triggering for some folks, so beware. After last week's episode on shame, it seemed only right that I talk about blame. One of the things in The Solution, which is a foundational document of the ACA program, is that we will free ourselves from the shame and blame that are carryovers from the past. Because shame and blame tend to go hand in hand. One of the reasons that we blame is because we're ashamed and we don't want to hold on to that shame, so we try to shove it onto someone else. So we blame them. There's a couple things I want to say about shame before I go into the stuff on blame. And one is that I didn't talk about my role in using shame when I did the episode last week. I don't want it to sound like I was only feeling shame and never shaming others. So here's an example of something I know I did to shame others. Let me start by saying one of the things that is the worst or was the worst in my family was to be dumb. And I realized in recovery that I had a lot of shame around feeling dumb. And I also realized that I used shame to make other people feel dumb. So in other words, I did the exact thing to other people that I didn't want to have happen to me. So I never actually said to someone, "What are you, fucking stupid?" But I talked to people with that attitude and tone at times, often in the workplace. Now, this week, I remembered a specific incident where I did this. This young guy I was working with, he was a research assistant for me. He came to me with something. I don't know what I said to him. It was nasty. And after he left my office mate said, "What is the matter with you? Go apologize to him." She said, "Did you hear how you just talked to him?" And then she reflected back to me what I said. And I was like, "Oh my God, holy shit. Thank you so much for pointing that out." So I walked to his office and I apologized and said, "I'm really sorry that I spoke to you like that. I really do not want to talk to anybody like that." And he goes, "Yeah, well, it wasn't the first time." And I was like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm going to make every effort not to do that." So this was well before recovery, by the way. So I didn't even know that I talked to people like that. And I share that because I don't want to act like I've only been shamed by myself and by others and have never shamed anybody else. And the other thing I want to share is what happened in the couple of days after I recorded that last episode. The next morning, I was checking in with my inner children, which I do try to do every morning. First with my inner child, she was good. Then with my inner 11-year-old, she was good. And when I checked in with my inner teenager, she was snuggled on the lap of my inner loving parent, Big Mama, and she was sucking her thumb, crying. And I was like, holy shit, what is going on? Now, I don't remember how she conveyed this to me, but she let me know she wanted Big Mama and not me. And Big Mama let me know she was handling the situation. So I checked in that night, same thing. And then maybe 24 hours went by before she was okay again. But during that 24 hours, I was like, oh my God, she's in that state because I publicly shared about my shame. Now, the episode hadn't actually come out yet, so I checked in with her. I told her that if she wanted or needed me to not air that episode, then I wouldn't air it. And she was like, no, you really need to share that. It was just really, really hard for me. It's a good thing for people to hear. It was just really hard. So that happened. What's so amazing to me is that consciously, as an adult, I had no clue that there was any part of me whatsoever that had any qualms about sharing any of that stuff. That's why this reparenting stuff is so important, because just checking in for no reason, just to check in, I saw that there was a part of me that had some strong feelings about this. She got to express those feelings. She got comfort. She got validated about it. And then I also attempted repair when I said, if you want or need me to not air that episode, I will not air it. That is what healthy parents do. They comfort, they listen, they validate, they allow the feelings. And then they try to make things right when they mess up. They try to repair things. And that repair right there, that is the most important part of any relationship. That's why the idea that conflict shouldn't happen in a relationship is so bullshit. Because it's the repair from conflict that is the most important thing in a relationship. I feel the need to share here that I sucked my thumb as a child. I did it consciously to go to sleep at night until I was 8. I really tried to stop after that. And I remember being like 10 and still waking up knowing that I had been sucking my thumb. So that thumb sucking my inner teen was doing was something that I had done. And she was clearly, seriously reverting by doing that. Now, sometimes when I share my story at a meeting, I will start by saying, I have been numbing since I was a baby, because thumb sucking is numbing behavior. And of course, most babies do that for a little while, but most people don't suck their thumbs until they're 8 or 10. So I have been numbing as long as I can remember. Okay, on to blame. To me, blame is an indicator that you probably have victim mentality. And I know this well because this is me. When you're blaming or always looking for someone to blame, you're acting like you either cannot have any impact on the situation or do not want to take responsibility for the situation. And I know because I have an inner blamer. Even to this day, knowing that this is a pattern for me, I still have an automatic blamer in my head. This is why coming to understand that just because I think something doesn't mean it's true has been so helpful to me, and why it's more important to talk to myself than to listen to myself. Because when I listen to myself, there's a lot of bullshit in there. Here's an example that I'm pretty sure I shared previously on the podcast. The first year I was dating my sweetheart, this would have been in 2019, so 5 years ago. I was sleeping over his house one night, and I sleep with a pillow between my knees, which you probably will too when you get older if you're not already doing that. Well, I woke up in the middle of the night, my knee pillow was gone, and my waking thought was, that fucker stole my pillow. I literally woke up from unconsciousness to blame. Now, first of all, he was sleeping. Secondly, why the hell would he take my pillow? And third, it was on the floor right next to me on my side of the bed. Like, wow, that is crazy. I want to blame so bad that I woke up from a sound sleep in blame of someone else. Now, here's another one that's just come to my awareness in the last few months. When I'm on a phone call with someone and there's a bad connection, I automatically want it to be their fault. It's something on their end, even if I am out walking in the world and not connected to a wireless internet, and it probably is me. I really want it to be their fault. I really want to blame it on them. Now, I don't actually say anything to them, but inside I'm thinking, yeah, it's their fault. Even though I intellectually understand it is probably not their fault, it's probably mine. Emotionally, I still do not want to be the party who is responsible for that. And the same is true around my house. When there's something missing or in the wrong place in my house, I want to blame my sweetheart for it, even when it's something that he would never touch. I automatically want to blame him. But I know now that just because I want to blame him, it doesn't mean it's his fault. And this has shown me how much of a blamer I was in my previous relationships. I assumed everything was their fault. It was probably a couple of years after doing my relationship inventory and recovery that I finally let it bubble up to the conscious part of my brain that I came to see that I used to believe in all of my romantic relationships that I was responsible for all of the good things that happened in the relationship, and whoever the guy I was dating was responsible for all the bad things in the relationship, which is laughable. It is impossible out of a pair of any two people that one of them is at fault 100% of the time when something is wrong, and the other person is responsible 100% of the time when things go well. It's just not realistic. We are all humans. We all have flaws, but that is what I used to believe. It was not something that was conscious, mind you, but it was a belief, and it was how I operated. So I blamed my partners for all the bad stuff and believed that I was responsible for all the good stuff. Now, there's another thing I want to say about the shame. I don't really know if this came across in what I said last week, but our families shame us because they were shamed, not because they're pieces of shit. They do it because they don't know anything else. Now, that doesn't make it okay. I'm not saying it's okay. I shamed my coworkers and others because I didn't know how to do anything else. We're always looking for someone to blame because that's what was done in our families. Someone has to be at fault. And in many dysfunctional families, there's one person who is the identified patient or scapegoat, and the family heaps all that blame onto that one person. This is all very much tied to victim mentality. We act like we don't have a part in the way things are, which means we believe we can't have a part in the solution of whatever the problem is. Another reason that blame came up for me this week, not just following up on the shame episode, but because I'm reading a semi-autobiographical novel by an adult child who was incested as a child and was told by her mother, "You're making him do it." Meanwhile, she was a child. Now, I know that is not terribly uncommon, which is horrendous. The fact that happens shows how serious dysfunction is and how serious intergenerational family dysfunction is as an illness. It is so fucking insidious that an adult woman would actually even think that a girl child could cause an adult man to sexually abuse her. That is insane. Never mind actually fucking saying it to the child. This is how insidious this family dysfunction is. Something that makes absolutely no sense to anyone who's rational could be believed by someone so much that they would say it to a child. Never mind that you're her mom and it's your job to protect her. And that's more evidence of how deep denial is in dysfunctional families. We are in such denial sometimes that we automatically blame the victim in situations like this. We often look to blame other people because we have shame, which is just about the worst feeling in the world. So we want to get rid of it. And we displace that shame onto other people by blaming them. Blame keeps us mired in the dysfunction. It keeps us in victim mentality. It keeps us believing that we have no choices, that things are the way they are and there's nothing I can do about it. When we're constantly looking for someone to blame, we're too busy doing that to take any responsibility for ourselves. Not that we have the mentality to do that anyway. We can't even see that it's possible that we could have an effect on the situation. This is one of the gajillion reasons why the 12 steps are so powerful, because when you do step 4, you are seeking what was my part in this situation. Now, it doesn't mean nobody did anything to you. It just means we're seeking to see how we reacted to what happened to us. And that brings me to another thing that came up this week that made me want to record this. Somebody that I highly admire and respect shared at one of my 12-step meetings the other night, and he talked about how it says in the big book, I am a result of the way I reacted to what happened to me as a child. And with recovery, our reaction patterns can change. Now, notice it doesn't say my problem is what happened to me as a child. My problem is how I reacted to what happened to me. And the reason that distinction matters is you can't change what happened to you, but you can change your reaction patterns. That is powerful. You can change your reaction patterns even decades later. Now, our reaction patterns often include, what did I make it mean when that thing happened to me? Now, this guy that shared also says this, my faith was in the lies I was telling myself. So he didn't have a higher power. He had a lower power. So part of his reaction to what happened to him was he told himself that he was a worthless piece of shit. So, of course, he was miserable and he felt unlovable. And with recovery, his reaction patterns have changed. Now, if you related to any of this, I encourage you to use this as info, not ammo. It's information to learn and grow from, not ammunition to beat yourself up. I also recommend you do some reflecting. Journal about a time when recently you were quick to blame someone, and then think about how you might handle the similar situation differently in the future. You can't change the past, whether that's what happened to you or what you did, but you can change your reaction patterns. And that, my friends, is freedom. You're feeling overwhelmed because you're overcommitted and just can't keep up. You neglect yourself even though you know you should take better care of yourself, but you just don't have the time. You really want to say no, but just can't get yourself to do it because you don't want to come across as selfish or unhelpful. And you're pretending things are okay with you when they're really not. If this is you, we should talk. Go to barbchat.net and sign up for a free 30-minute call with me about my private coaching. This is for people who are finally ready to make deep, lasting changes in their lives, their relationship patterns, including their relationships with themselves, their partners, family, friends, and colleagues. That's barbchat.net. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.